Hi everyone, this is Nadina again. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk about how to create a token with the ERC20 standard and to deploy it on a testnet and verify it on the blockchain eventually. I will not talk about the details of the code. There is plenty of documentation out there and also lots of YouTube videos how to do that. I might do future videos that go a little bit more into specific functionality of tokens. But before we get into it, please leave me a like and subscribe to my channel. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, let's get into it. So as you can see here on the screen, I have VS Code. That's my preferred text editor, but you can obviously use whatever you'd like. And the tools we're going to need to create a token is Node.js, which you likely have already pre-installed if you have a Windows machine. Otherwise, you can just Google it. And I will use Hardhat to code the Solidity contract. So for Hardhat, you have actually really good documentation already. So when you go to the hardhat.org website, you can go to Get Started. You can navigate to setting up a project, and it really takes you through all these steps here that you need to create a basic Hardhat project. I'm going to show you really quickly how that goes, but then I will use actually a GitHub repository to make it a little bit faster. So yeah, you see already here the first step, npm init and why. So let's do that. So first we create a folder. I call it token. And I navigate into this folder. And then, yeah, run npm, what was it? Init y. And that creates you a package.json file, which will track all the installations that you do, so it's easier to reinstall it later. And you'll see that when I clone the GitHub repository. So now you have to install Hardhat. So you do npm install, and you want to save that to this package file. And you want it for the developer dependencies because someone else later on won't need that to run it. So npm install save dev. That's mainly if you have an entire application, but because then the smart contract is already on the blockchain. So for this particular case, when you actually have only a contract, so you will need Hardhat either way. But yeah, do save dev as just a convention, and then we do Hardhat and enter. So this will take a little bit, and depending on your machine, it might take longer or faster. So this is done. And so the next step is you can actually just create a sample Hardhat project, which is a really great way to start. You will see in a minute there will be an error message, which will tell us that we have to install another package. So I do npx Hardhat and just enter. I would choose a JavaScript project because you need JavaScript files to test and deploy, and it gives you already the folder structure that you might want to adopt. So you want to have it in the root folder, yes, and you want to have a git ignore because you want to have some files in the git ignore to protect your sensitive information. So you do yes. That went through smoothly. But now when I actually run Hardhat test, which will just run a test, you will see that we'll need another package to have it done. Okay, so I do npx Hardhat test. And now you see the error message. That's why it's because we don't have this package here. So I'm going to copy that. I do npm install, again, save dev, copy it in. Here we go. So now you see that Node.js inserted the two packages here, Hardhat and this other Nomic Foundation Hardhat toolbox. And now when I run Hardhat test, it will go through. But before, I just show you quickly what these files are here. So you have a contracts folder, a scripts folder, and test folder. Node modules belongs to the Node.js environment, so don't worry about that. And you have a Hardhat config.js file, which we will need later. And yeah, the package.json file with the packages here. So here is already a sample contract in here with a sample deployment file and a sample test file. So that's what's running when I do npx hardhat test. It will actually run the log.js file here, run the tests, deploy the contract, and run the tests on it. So here now you see that it's testing right now, and it's passing all the tests in the log.js file. So, but now we're just going to move on to the token contract, and so I'm going to delete. Actually, I'm just going to clone it. So I'm gonna go out of this. I'm gonna go out of this folder, and I'm gonna go to GitHub, where you can see a repository that I created with a very basic token contract. I will in the future add other token contracts here, so with different features. So here you have now a branch with the basic token, which really has the very basic functions that you need to comply with the ERC20 standard. So here you can copy the URL, you go back to your terminal, you do git clone, and you paste it here. And here we go. So now we have here a folder called token contract. Gonna navigate into that as well. And now the convenient thing is what you can do, if you go to package.json, you already see that there are a few more packages that are needed to actually develop the entire token contract. But it takes a very long time to walk you guys through all this. So I'm just gonna show you how to use this particular repository, and you can adapt it if you want to. So now I can do npm install, and it will actually install all the packages that are listed here automatically. So you have the Hardhat package, you have the Nomic Foundation Hardhat toolbox. What you also need is Chai, which is, I think, part of the Mocha package, which is used for testing. And you also need ethers to interact with the contract, and the .env for protecting your private keys. When you, it just makes it easier that you don't mistakenly put your private keys onto a GitHub repository and share that information. You don't really need open sapling contracts, but I just put it here so you might want to use that, which is actually very convenient. So if you go to open sapling, here you have lots of different contracts that are compliant with the ERC20 token standard. So the ERC20 token standard was done that it's easier to develop decentralized applications, because if they're standardized decentralized exchanges or other applications, know how to interact with another smart contract, or for example, your token. So what they specify is the minimal functionality these contracts need to function properly on the blockchain. So you have a name function, symbol, decimals, and so on, transfer function, approve function, and so on. And if you want to have your token really work right on the blockchain, you don't get any errors or vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities can still happen, but this really helps to make sure that each application out there can interact with your token. So since this is something that each token needs, you basically, if you code it from scratch, you will just do it over and over and over again for the same things. Maybe you make a few adjustments here and there, but you will always have to code up all these functions. So there is OpenZeppelin, which already gives you contracts that have implemented all these functions. And it has pretty good documentation, and they have contracts for different ERC standards, ERC20 for tokens, ERC721 for NFTs, and so on. And so you can basically install that package also with Node, the Node package manager, and then you have very little code to actually use to import all the functions that you need. I found it a little bit weird because you don't see the functions really yet, so you have to go back to the GitHub repository if you want to know how the functions actually work. So in my repository, I actually coded it out because I just prefer it that way. But yeah, so that's why this is still in here, but you don't really need that. So now I'm just going to walk you quickly through the contract and the tests and the scripts. So here you have the token contract, and as you see, you have all these functions, which basically, because they're public, they are automatically functions: name, symbol, decimals, and so on, balance, allowance. And so here are all the functions that you need for a basic token. Now in the test folder, there is a token.js file, and this basically tests for each of these functions. It tests whether it has the correct name, the correct symbol, the decimals, and so on, whether it transfers tokens properly, whether it's approving it properly. And so you can run this test and see if your token actually works on the testnet. So Hardhat has an internal test net essentially. So when you go to Hardhat config, under networks, you can specify localhost. If that's empty, it will automatically start up the Hardhat network. And so you can test it that way first before you even deploy anything. So if I do npx hardhat test again here, we'll see if that's actually work. And here it goes through all the tests and it passed. So that's great. Now I'm going to show you how, if you wanted to move on and actually put it on a testnet, what you have to do. So the first thing that you might have to do is you have to connect to an actual Ethereum node. And one of those is infura.io. There are others. I think the other one that is often used is Alchemy. I wasn't so... Yeah, it really doesn't matter, but I just prefer this one. So if I log in here, so if you don't have an account yet, you just sign up, and it actually will automatically ask you to also create a project, so you can just go through all these prompts, which is no problem. So if I log in here, then you see different projects. So if you click on create new key, it will ask you for a new project name, and you can select the network that you, or basically, yeah, what type of network you want. I don't create a new one now. And so if you want to, what you will need is an API key to interact with to connect to the Ethereum node, and then so you can deploy your contract. So what you will need when you click on this, sorry, that was the wrong button. So you go manage key. What you will need is your API key, and here you can select the test network that you want to use. So what I actually noticed is Kovan and Rinkebai, or however you pronounce this, they are actually deprecated now. So on Kovan, they completely disabled it, so you can only read from the testnet. And I think the Rinkebai will be sometime in October when they actually just shut it down. So the best bet for you is either Gurley or Zipolia. So I used Gurley. And that's the URL that you will use to connect to the node. The other thing that you will need besides an account for a node is you need to get test ether into your MetaMask or wallet. You don't really need MetaMask, but most people do. So I used the faucets.chain.link. So here you can connect your wallet. And I just connect all of these. Or actually, I'm gonna create a new account because we'll see, maybe I can get some more. They have some limitation in terms of how much Gurley ether you can get per day. So we'll see if I will be able to get some ether in another account. So yeah, when you connect, you can here put in your address. It will automatically pull it when the first time you connect. And then you don't need link, but you need the test ether. I wouldn't log in via Twitter, because what happened to me was that I logged into Twitter, and all of a sudden I wasn't able to get more ether while I was able before. So then you have to go do this I am human thing, which is lengthy stuff. So here again, some pots on the table, and verify, and yeah, it doesn't allow me. So usually, so if you haven't gotten your Gurley ether for the day yet, this button here will be blue, and you can press on it, and then the ether will just go to your wallet. So I have now only my first account here with some Gurley. That's the only one that I can use to deploy. So how are we using that ether and that node now to deploy our contract? So we go back to our project here, and what we need to do is to create a .env file. So we do .env, and that's where you store your sensitive information. So what you need is the API key and your private keys. So if you go to the Hardhat config file, you see here I already have here a variable private keys. So that's actually Gurley, but that doesn't matter. I can actually change that now real quick. So Gurley private keys. So this you would have to copy into your env file. Actually, I have to move that here, private keys, and then you will have a string where you put in your private keys and you separate them by a comma. So you have private key essentially and private key, depending on how many you'll need. For this project to test properly, I need actually 3 different ones. So you just go, so you go essentially to your, so if you have MetaMask, you can go to your MetaMask wallet, and then you can here on the, you go to account details, and then you can export private key. You type in your MetaMask password, and then it will show you the private key, which I won't do right now because I might want to use these accounts still. And then you copy it to your env file. And then you do that for each account that you want to use. The other thing that you will need is the Infura API key. So you put that in here. And you go to your Infura account, and then you can get here the API key, you copy it, and you paste it in here. And once you have your API key here and your private keys that you want to use, you can go to the Hardhat config, you decomment this part, and already put in the URL, but you can also find the URL here. Just be careful that this includes the API key as well. So you have to remove that to basically keep it safe, because otherwise it will be in your config file, and if you upload that to GitHub, you'll just, everyone can see it. So yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete my env file, and this env file has to be in the root folder. Just yeah, be careful about that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy my env file from my actual GitHub folder. So what I'm going to do is copy GitHub contract. So now you can run your deploy.js file in the scripts folder with npx hardhat run and then network, and you select the girly network and you run the scripts file. Here you go, press enter. And here we go, it's deployed. So now, to see whether it's on the blockchain, you can copy this address and you go to, you can search for girly etherscan. So it's girly.etherscan.io. You punch this in, and here you go, here is your contract. So sometimes it takes a little bit to actually, be verified and everything. So if you go to contract, you see here just the bytecode. Typically when you upload or deploy a contract, what you want is to verify and publish it, which is essentially just giving your source code and they check if it's the right one. So then you just have to click there, and then you go through all the prompts to verify the contract. But yeah, essentially here, transactions, that's your deployment, and yeah, your contract is on the blockchain. So that's it for today. So I hope that helped you if you wonder how to deploy a contract with Hardhat and in Ethereum. If that was helpful, please give me a like. Also subscribe to my channel to hear more, and I hope to see you soon again. Bye.